Welcome to the Thriving Artist Podcast, where we share strategies and support for artists to thrive.
We know that the art world can feel like a lonely place, and we want to provide a network of support, impactful strategies, and an abundance of encouragement to help you grow your authentic art career.
We're your hosts. I'm Jamie Smith.
And I'm Kaylan Butine, and we are also the co-founders of the Thrive Together Network, a community of female and non-binary identifying artists and artists who are caregivers.
We truly believe in community over competition, and we're so glad you're here. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Jamie Smith. I am one of the hosts of the podcast. And for me, money is all about freedom and time. The more abundant I feel, I feel that I can spend more time as I want. And this is really freedom to me.
And I'm Kaylan Butine, your second host. And to me, money is an energy exchange. I try to keep emotions out of it and remember that money is just another form of energy that we can trade, just like our knowledge, our time, our resources. So we are on a final episode with our theme of organize, and this one is called 5 Tips for Organizing Your Art Finances. And the TTN community sessions have been just such a good time to focus on all things organization and really dig into some of the things that maybe we don't make time for or that we often put off. Jamie, I'm wondering if you've put anything into action this month that we've talked about.
Yeah, I was really inspired by creating a naming system for my digital assets. And I feel proud because I just started where I was and just made my system. And then the other night I got inspired. I was watching a show and I just started renaming files. I just sat there and did the work. So it was great. What about you, Kaylan?
I love when you can do something while you're watching TV. That's,
it's a dream.
And I actually have done a few studio cleaning sessions with a good audiobook on. I've even set up my computer and maybe had some Netflix going on in the background. But my big kind of win was that I reorganized my studio a bit, inspired by our session about studio organization. And I moved my sewing machine closer to my fabric. So it kind of created like a better workflow. I'm feeling really positive and happy about that. So on this episode, we're talking about organizing your art finances, and we have 5 tips for you. You all know we love our numbered tips or our steps. So let's get cracking.
Yeah, I love talking about money and our wealth. I made a whole Skillshare class all about making a business plan that focuses a lot on getting clear with money, because I think this can be really stressful for people and overwhelming, but we wanted to make it really simple for this episode. So 5 tips for organizing your art finances. And your first tip is to do a wealth check. So we want to spend a couple minutes doing our wealth check. And this is defining your artist's wealth. And this doesn't necessarily mean money. It could be, but we are rich in so many aspects as artists. So for example, one of mine is that I am free to think creative thoughts and actually free to put them into action. And so that is something that I find I'm very wealthy in. So you want to get out a piece of paper and fill at least half a page. We do this at an art and tea session and have a little half box for artists to fill in. But you can just use a regular piece of paper and just get out all the things that you as an artist are wealthy with.
I love this exercise when we do it on Art and Tea in the Thrive Together Network, because it's just really encouraging to hear what other artists have, what they consider to be sort of their wealth and what resources they have that they're working with. It really puts us all in like a very positive and gratitude mindset. And it makes me grateful to be an artist. So the next tip for organizing your art finances, number 2, is to assess your mindset. Money really is, a mental game. We often create stories about our money. or we're taught stories about our money when we're young, which can really bring in those emotions. And at the end of the day, money really is just numbers that tell the story of how we spend our resources and our time. Like I mentioned at the very top of the episode, I try to remove emotion from money and just think of it as a resource, as something to exchange and detach emotion from it. So take a minute to think about what money means to you and why it means those things to you. Maybe do some writing on this. What were you taught about money? What were you not taught? Maybe you weren't given much information about money, and why might that have been? How does, the things that you've been taught about money or not taught about money, how does that influence, how you think and feel about money now and what you think you deserve?
And these can be deep and a bit heavy, these questions, but we really can unravel our money stories by taking time to think about it and check in with our mindset. Because if we work on our mindset, the better our finances will become. They are directly linked, which can seem crazy, but how we view our money is also how we're going to receive it and give it. And it's just an exchange of energy, like you said, Kaylan. So,
Mhm.
money is emotional, but the next tip is very practical. So, tip number 3 is to track it. So, we spend all this time making money, we spend all this time thinking about money, and then it can feel like it just goes out the door. So, we want to stop that process, this hamster wheel, and we actually want to think about a system that we can look at our money from month to month when we feel maybe a little bit powerless or we're not sure where it's going, that overwhelmed feeling. I've been there. Um, how can we have a system where we can plug into our money whenever we need to? So for me, I use a simple spreadsheet and I go through my Visa statement at the end of every month and I put these amounts into categories like art supplies, studio rent. And this may be a little bit tedious to some people, but I find it gives me an hour to really sit with my money and really look at every transaction. And it becomes a habit, and I'm quite quick at it now. And I actually enjoy it. I feel like it tells a story and it really helps me kind of unravel where my money went, where I want it to go, what I want to tweak for next month. So, Kaylin, what do you use? Because I know you do track your money.
I track my money as well, but I do it in a bit more of an automated way. So I use QuickBooks Self-Employed, using both the QuickBooks software on my computer and then also the QuickBooks Self-Employed app. And my spending is so unlike yours, where you kind of go through and categorize it, line by line. Mine is actually automatically dropped into categories as it goes, through my bank accounts and or if it gets charged to my credit card. But what I love about the software is that I have to manually approve each transaction. So I'm still seeing it. And I think that's what we're getting at here is it's that mental energy of like literally watching where every dollar is going, where every penny is going, right? And having that knowledge. Because I think it's not so much about how much money you have, but it's how much knowledge you have about where your money is and where it's going that can really help you feel empowered in sort of the financial realm. I really like, I was just going to say, I really like my system because I can pull up that app, anytime. I almost pull it up every day, and there's always a list of transactions to approve. And then I'm constantly just kind of thinking, okay, here's how much I have left in my account. Here's how much I've spent on this. It's a little bit of mental energy that I can put towards my money and helps me kind of stay on track, which I really like.
I love too that you can plug in not just at the end of the month with yours. So that's really great. I spend a lot of time, I really enjoy journaling in my life, and I will, write notes and do things during the month. But I actually think my Visa statement really tells another story,
Mhm.
and it really connects directly to how I'm feeling. And when we think of money as this, thing that's not connected to us, it's really not true because our money is how we spend our time. It shows what we value. I
Mhm.
can see when I was stressed. I can see when I was happy. All these purchases are really the threads of our life. And for better or for worse, we are in a capitalistic society and money is what we use. And so I like to soften it. I like to feel engaged with it and thinking of it is this is kind of the story of my month, and it's how I treated myself and treated the people around me. So, just if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, you find a system that really works for you and
Mhm.
how you can check in. So a really important second part of all this is our tip number 4. And we want to stay financially organized, but this tip is to review it. So it's one thing to put in those numbers, and it's great to do that and get in that habit. But if we don't actually look at those numbers and think about what are they saying to us so that we can course correct for the upcoming month, it doesn't really work. It kind
Mhm.
of isn't, we're losing a lot of the power that those numbers can give us. So, Kaylan, I was wondering for you, how are you reviewing? I know your
Yeah,
system allows for that.
it allows for it, but I will say this is where I could be a little bit better with my money. Because I rely on software that's so automated, I feel like I always know where I stand, but I often skip out on those bigger review sessions, right? Where I might sit down and kind of pull reports and look, okay, yes, I know I spent, like on this day, I know I spent $30 on art supplies, but what have I spent this quarter on art supplies, right? Like kind of doing that more big picture review, I think is something that I can be better at. I really like to implement quarterly money reviews, and I often do these when we do our celebration and centering sessions, which are our quarterly sessions that we do on the Thrive Together network. So we already have these systems really in place for our community to plug into. And I think that's really important because we believe in this stuff. That's why we're preaching it to you, right? But I think doing a quarterly review, while I have that, kind of daily and weekly awareness of my money, I need to get better about really sitting down and doing those quarterly reviews, and maybe, like you said, Jamie, doing some journaling or writing along with those sessions. So I think this leads us nicely into our last tip for organizing your art finances, number 5, and that is use it. Spending all this time tracking and reviewing only really impacts us when we take that story, the story that our numbers are telling us, like Jamie mentioned, and we adjust any parts that don't serve us anymore, or we celebrate what we're doing well, right? If I want to rent a studio space, but I feel like I can't afford this, but then I do that quarterly money review and I realized over the last quarter, maybe I've spent $200 a month on eating out or something because I didn't, meal prep or budget for my food. I can look at that and say, well, do I really value, having these like lunches out with people, or do I value having a studio space? And could I take that $200 a month and find a studio to rent instead, right? Probably not in Vancouver, but maybe in Fort Wayne.
Well,
We
and it shows you that it kind of is a surprise of, oh, I can afford that actually. We
exactly.
can kind of get stuck with our own money stories of the things we think we can't and can afford, we do or do not deserve. But the
Mhm.
numbers are, they don't lie, they're not emotional. So it's neat to see how you can allocate your money differently.
Yeah, I think the point is that we really always have more money than we think we do if we're willing to just learn and be knowledgeable about where that money is going, because then we can feel empowered to make decisions about it. So I think that's really what we want for you, is that, we want you to have that awareness so that you can feel empowered and make the decisions that really connect with your values as an artist and as a human with your money.
Yeah. And it can feel overwhelming thinking and talking about money, but you can start anytime. You don't have to get stuck in the shame of not knowing where you're at. It can be as easy as just finding a tool like QuickBooks Online, or starting a spreadsheet. And the key is just to start and get going because it really can change everything. And we want artists to have money. We feel that women artists, non-binary artists, artists that have been maybe not the ones with the power, money can help sort of elevate what we're doing and what we're saying, and it can feel more empowering. So we want you to have money in your hands.
Yeah, we do. And I just have to share a quick story. I was on a panel a few months ago with some other artists, and one of the artists was talking about pricing her work and making money. And she said, I just want to be able to pay for my bread and milk, like kind of this very humble, like I just want to buy food with my money. And I like almost jumped out of my chair and I was like, I want artists to be the wealthiest people in the world. I want artists to have the power to create cultural change. So I want artists to have money. I want artists to have knowledge about money. I'm done with that like scarcity mindset of artists have no money, artists are poor. We really want you to think more abundant and to really use your knowledge and, to feel empowered about your money in ways that can help you create cultural change. That's what we all want, really. So
Mhm.
if you like this session, if you like what we're sharing with you about money and art and all things art career, you can join us every Tuesday for our live session that we have on the Thrive Together Network, which is a virtual art community where hundreds of artists meet every week. You can find more about what we offer on thrivetogethernetwork.com. As always, Jamie and I are here for you. We are cheering you on, and we believe in the work you are doing as thriving artists.